Katherine Swynford, Duchess of Lancaster, was the third wife of John of Gaunt, Duke of Lancaster, a son of King Edward III. She had been the Duke's lover for many years before the marriage. The couple's children, born before the marriage, were later legitimated during the reign of the Duke's nephew, Richard II. When the Duke's son from his first marriage overthrew Richard, becoming Henry IV, he introduced a provision that neither they nor the descendants could ever claim the throne of England. The descendants were members of the Beaufort family, which played a major role in the Wars of the Roses. Henry VII, who became King of England in 1485, derived his claim to the throne from his mother Margaret Beaufort, who was a great-granddaughter of Gaunt and Katherine Swynford. His legal claim to the throne, however, was through a matrilineal and previously illegitimate line, and Henry's first action was to declare himself king, by right of conquest, retroactively from the 21st of August 1485, the day before his army defeated King Richard III at the Battle of Bosworth. Family. Katherine was the daughter of Pao and Aroa, a herald, and later knight, who was probably christened as Giles. She had two sisters, Philippa and Isabel d'Aroa, and a brother, Walter. Isabel later became canoness of the convent of St. Wardrose, Mons, c. 1366. Katherine is generally held to have been his youngest child. However, Alison Weir argues that Philippa was the junior and that both were children of a second marriage. Katherine's sister Philippa, a lady in the royal household of Philippa of Hainault, married the poet Geoffrey Chaucer. She was probably born in Hainault in 1349 of 1350. Katherine's birth date may have been the 25th of November, as that is the feast day of her patron, St. Catherine of Alexandria. The family returned to England in 1351, and it is likely that Katherine stayed there during her father's continued travels. She was educated at Romsey Abbey before being part of the household of Philippa of Hainault with her sister. In about 1366, at St. Clement Danes Church, Westminster, Katherine, aged 16 or 17, contracted an advantageous marriage with Hugh Swynford, a knight from the manor of Kettlethorpe in Lincolnshire, the son of Thomas Swynford by his marriage to Nicole Druel. She had the following children by him: Blanche, Thomas, and possibly Margaret Swynford, later recorded as a nun of the prestigious Barking Abbey, nominated by command of King Richard II. Katherine became attached to the household of John of Gaunt as governess to his daughters Philippa of Lancaster and Elizabeth of Lancaster. The ailing Duchess Blanche had Katherine's daughter Blanche placed within her own daughter's chambers and afforded the same luxuries as her daughters. Additionally, John of Gaunt stood as godfather to the child. Sometime after Blanche's death in 1368 and the birth of the first son in 1373, Katherine and John of Gaunt entered into a love affair that would produce 4 children for the couple, born out of wedlock but legitimized upon the parents' eventual marriage. The adulterous relationship endured until 1381, when it was truncated out of political necessity and ruined Katherine's reputation. On the 13th of January 1396, 2 years after the death of the Duke's second wife, Infanta Constance of Castile, Katherine and John of Gaunt married in Lincoln Cathedral. Records of the marriage kept in the Tower and elsewhere list: John of Gaunt, Duke of Lancaster, married Katherine, daughter of Gaunt, King of Arms in the time of King Edward III, and Geoffrey Chaucer, her sister. On John of Gaunt's death, Katherine became known as Dowager Duchess of Lancaster. She outlived him by 4 years, dying on the 10th of May 1403, in her early 50s. Tomb. Catherine's tomb and that of her daughter, Joan Beaufort, are under a carved stone canopy in the sanctuary of Lincoln Cathedral. Joan's is the smaller of the two tombs. Both were decorated with brass plates, full-length representations of them on the tops, and small shields bearing coats of arms around the sides and on the top, but those were damaged or destroyed in 1644 during the English Civil War. A hurried drawing by William Dugdale records their appearance. Children and descendants. Catherine's children by Hugh Swynford were: Margaret Swynford became a nun at the prestigious Barking Abbey in 1377 with help from her future stepfather John of Gaunt, where she lived the religious life with her cousin Elizabeth Chaucer, daughter of the famous Geoffrey Chaucer, and Catherine's sister Philippa de Roe. Sir Thomas Swynford, born in Lincoln while his father Sir Hugh Swynford was away on a campaign with the Duke of Lancaster in Castile fighting for Peter of Castile. Blanche Swynford, named after the Duchess of Lancaster and a godchild of John of Gaunt. In 1846, Thomas Stapleton suggested that there was a further daughter named Dorothy Swynford, born c. 1366, who married Thomas Thirmelby of Pulham near Horncastle, Lincolnshire, Sheriff of Lincolnshire in 1380, but there is no current evidence to support this claim. Catherine's children by John of Gaunt were: John Beaufort, 1st Earl of Somerset; Henry, Cardinal Beaufort; Thomas Beaufort, Duke of Exeter; Joan Beaufort, Countess of Westmoreland. The descendants of Katherine Swynford and John of Gaunt are significant in English and Scottish history. The four children had been given the surname Beaufort, and with the approval of King Richard II and the Pope were legitimated as adults by their parents' marriage in 1396. Despite this, the Beauforts were barred from inheriting the throne of England by a clause in the Legitimation Act inserted by the half-brother, Henry IV. Although modern scholarship disputes the authority of a monarch to alter an existing parliamentary statute on his own authority, without the further approval of Parliament, this provision was later revoked by Edward VI, placing Catherine's descendants back within the legitimate line of inheritance. The Tudor dynasty was directly descended from John and Catherine's eldest child, John Beaufort, great-grandfather of Henry VII, who based his claim to the throne on his mother's descent from John of Gaunt, a son of Edward III. John Beaufort also had a daughter named Joan Beaufort, who married James I of Scotland and thus was an ancestress of the House of Stuart. John and Catherine's daughter, Joan Beaufort, was grandmother of the English kings Edward IV and Richard III, the latter of whom Henry Tudor defeated at the Battle of Bosworth Field. Henry's claim was strengthened by marrying Elizabeth of York, eldest daughter of Edward IV. It was also through Joan Beaufort, Countess of Westmoreland, that the sixth Queen of Henry VIII, Catherine Parr, descended. John of Gaunt's son, Catherine's stepson Henry of Bolingbroke, became Henry IV after deposing Richard II. John of Gaunt's daughter by his first marriage to Blanche of Lancaster, Philippa of Lancaster, was great-great-grandmother to Catherine of Aragon, first wife of Henry VIII and mother of Mary I of England. John of Gaunt's child by his second wife Constance, Catherine, was great-grandmother of Catherine of Aragon as well.